Welcome to another teaching by Dr. Ray Vinson. Ray is a friend, mentor, and solution strategist for spiritual leadership. Now here's Dr. Vinson.
Greetings everyone, and welcome to this special edition of eStrategy. We are going to be dealing today with a very powerful yet very sensitive subject of the psychological and spiritual welfare of our veterans that are coming home from overseas and many of the struggles that they are suffering. You know, they come home, but they never seem for many of them to get home. And today I have with me a very special guest, my dear friend Chris English, who also is a part of Dominion International Network, our network family. He is the founder and president of the West Texas Hunters for Heroes chapter, and he is doing a phenomenal work with veterans. And I'm going to give him an opportunity just to give you a little insight of what he's doing with veterans today. And we're going to talk about a relationship, the relationship, if you will, between veterans and the church. And literally what veterans struggle with and why they have such a difficult time not only transitioning into a civilian life here back home, but struggling very much to transition into a relationship with God. And so would you please welcome my dear friend Chris English. And I'm going to just begin to ask him some questions. Chris, it's so good to have you with me on the program today. Give us a little bit about your testimony as to what happened to you overseas, how many tours you served, how many years you were in the military. And Chris, then just kind of lead us up to your own experience of what you went through, coming up to a place to where you needed help yourself.
Okay. Well, I've got over 20 years of service in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
I did 6 tours.
Okay.
And what it was is with Iraq and Afghanistan, such a fast-paced deployment cycle is what we call it. In the beginning, you would deploy, and the Army units will stay anywhere from a year to a year and a half overseas, and then they come back. And in the beginning, there wasn't a stabilization period.
Okay.
So you could be back for 4 or 5 months, and then they send you right back.
Okay.
So you had no time to try to work through any issues whatsoever of what you may have seen or done yourself while you were overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So during that up tempo, you just basically have to stuff everything down. You don't have time while you're over there to mourn a loss of a fallen soldier, one of your brothers, or try to rationalize anything that you've done or seen over there. You don't have the time, and it's just not a healthy way to deal with it.
Right.
For most veterans, you have to just basically stuff it down and keep going forward with the mission. And that takes its toll so much on our veterans now that some of the things that are asked of veterans while you're over there that goes against our core values, our ethics, our morals.
Mm-hmm.
It goes against the way we were raised. And like I said before, is not just the things you did, but the things you had to walk by and just let happen, because the military doesn't want to get involved into something like that. You know, they will pull women out in the streets and beat them.
Okay.
And a lot of times we're not allowed to get involved in that. But
So this is Sharia law.
it's Sharia law.
You're literally having to walk past and watch the victimization of women because of the laws that they have there. And you cannot interfere.
No, it's their culture, it's their laws, so we're not able to interject ourselves within their laws.
Okay.
And we're strictly there for a combative situation.
Yeah.
And that's not considered a combative situation. That's them abiding by their culture, their laws,
Sure.
their beliefs.
Sure. Sure.
So we do. We just have to walk by and see that, and you know, in the society that we're born and raised in, it's not normal for us to walk by and see a woman get beat to death, or to see, you know, kids being abused,
Right.
both mentally, physically, and sexually abused over there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a concept that we're used to.
Yeah.
You know, it always kind of amazed me to see how we reacted to it, but everybody who was born and raised there, that's just another day to them.
Just normal.
Just a normal day.
So what does that do to the psyche of a soldier? I mean, when you're dealing with this kind of rationale, and yet you're trying at the same time to do what's necessary to protect the families back here at home, knowing that we've kind of had to take the battle to them to keep them off of our soil, and yet you're struggling with all of this incongruency of our culture and the way we were raised, and the enlightenment of being able to love people and honor them, and yet at the same time finding yourself in a position where you're desperately needing to figure out some way to reconcile your own morals, your own values from a Christian perspective to what you need to do in order to secure a mission. What does that do psychologically to a soldier over a period of time?
It causes a lot of damage to us. It on a faith-based level, it almost destroys it to the point where, as we've talked before, where a lot of the veterans coming back and the soldiers come back when we get out, you know, we have those questions. Where was God when over there?
Okay.
Where was when that happened? Where was He? And we have that anger because, you know, we've struggled so much over there, and the things that we were asked to do for your country aren't pleasant at all. I mean, they're nightmare-inducing all on their own.
Okay.
And then the thought of having to go through those nightmares without God is really a devastating blow to you, especially if, you know, you put all your faith and all your trust and all your love into God, and you see no love over there.
Really?
It's an extremely violent place. And, you know, the veterans, we start to struggle with it. You know, every day it takes a little bit more of our normal away from us. We have to give up a little more of ourselves, our beliefs, our morals, just to survive over there.
Yeah.
You know, love is replaced with anger and frustration and hate and fear. A lot of times there's situations of, you know, a lot of people want to church it up and everything, but there's a lot of situations where it's just intense fear for moments on a time, and that intense fear, for however short or however long the battle or firefight had lasted, it never leaves you. It sticks with you, and that fear then starts to turn to anger and starts to turn to a hatred, and you don't see the love of God while you're over there.
So do you feel that, does the average soldier actually feel that they've been abandoned by God?
I would say the average soldier, mostly. There's some that absolutely make it through intact. There's a lot that absolutely feel abandoned over there, especially depending on how brutal your deployment was. You know, how many of your fellow friends, these are guys that you know, their hopes, their wishes, their dreams, who they're in love with, what their children's name are, and then to see them pass away right there, it starts to leave an awful void in you, and you do feel abandoned, you know.
Well, Chris, what was your personal experience? I mean, what did you go through from that place and time of your own anger, did you feel abandoned by God?
I did.
And with that, what was your experience from getting from there and then finding yourself at home? Did anything change for you after you got home?
Not really. All the mechanisms that I used to survive overseas, I equate it to like a light switch to be able to turn them off and on. Well, when I came back, I couldn't turn that light switch off.
Okay.
That light switch just was broken. And your normal feelings that you would feel back at home of love and compassion and, just your everyday joy. Mm-hmm. You no longer feel that. Now you're struggling with a whole different ball of wax here, because when you're overseas, you don't have time to process anything that happened. Mm-hmm. But when you get out and you become civilian and get in the civilian world, now you have nothing but the time. And you still, because like I said, I got in when I was 17. So that's pretty much what I knew.
Yeah.
And all I knew was you got to act tough and you got to stuff it down. And, if you don't deal with it, it's not there.
Yeah.
But when you come back, there's so much that you have stuffed down that it starts to leak out. Okay. And whether you want to deal with it or not, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Like I had equated it to like a tea kettle. You fill the tea kettle up with water, put it on the stove, and as it gets warmer, that pressure builds up, and then it starts to whistle because it's relieving some of that pressure out of that tea kettle. Well, with us, there's no way to relieve that pressure, no constructive way. So that's where you see a lot of veterans do turn to alcohol, to drugs, to any type of dangerous activity, self-harm, suicide.
Yeah.
That's
and how many soldiers are committing suicide right now? Of course, we're in December of 2021. What's the average from your perspective?
Well, it's fully expected to spike, especially over this week. This is an extremely hard week, but usually we stick around the 30 to 35 veterans a day taking their lives. The 22 a day is just it's a number, arbitrary number that we've had, our communities had to put to the suicides to be able to bring awareness that, hey, we're losing an extreme amount of veterans daily.
Yeah.
And it's not just our generation, it's other generations that have gone to war that are still struggling.
Yeah.
And have never gotten the help.
Yeah. So when you got home and you realized that you couldn't turn this switch off, what was your home life like with your family?
It was painful for me. I could see the damage I was causing, the pain I was mentally inflicting onto my family, because when you're suffering with the PTSD and trying to work through the issues, like I said, there's no constructive way to get it out, so you wind up blowing up and erupting.
Yeah.
And you spew all that damage onto your family, and you see the damage it's causing to your family, and you just, it's the weirdest thing that I could think of, and the best way I can explain it is, you're causing damage, you're hurting these people, but you can't stop. You can't not do it. Because the second of relief that you get from letting some of that out, you feel a relief for a second, maybe a couple minutes. You feel that relief. You almost start to crave that relief, because it's like somebody taking 1,000 hot needles and shoving them into you, and every time you move, they move around, and it's just a mental anguish.
Yeah.
And when you're able to spew that out and get it out for even a minute, you feel a minute of relief, and it's not right.
Yeah.
But you can't stop it.
Yeah. Now, your lovely wife, Heather, was also in the Army for 13 years.
Yes.
Right? And she actually retired early in order to take care of you. What did she see in you that you were going through at that time that you couldn't seem to manage? What were some of the things? And you don't have to get real
Yeah.
personal here, but just kind of
No.
give us an idea of what you went through, and maybe some of the things about going to the VA and getting help or not getting help.
Right. Well, first of all, I gotta say she's probably one of the strongest people I know. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, she did get out early to take care of me because I couldn't handle myself. I was literally going crazy. And she sacrificed her military career because she saw, she knew me before. Because when you're in the military, you keep it stuffed down, so you have a somewhat normality. And so she knew me before and after. And, I guess you could say that's just a pure, true love. I mean, and she wasn't willing to give up on me.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I'm here. She was always that beacon of light for me. And I went to the VA several times to get help. The VA's answer to mental illness is throwing medication at you. I've even had the VA tell me that they're not medicating me for me, they're medicating me for the public.
Wow.
And that does its own damage to you.
Yeah.
Where and you're seeing the damage that you're causing to your family, and you're having the VA telling you that they're medicating you so you don't damage the public. You start to accept that persona.
Yeah.
I'm just a damaged being, and there's nothing that can be done. And the pills, they numb you so much to where you don't have a quality of life.
Yeah.
And you're just existing at that point. And that's why a lot of veterans, we start to isolate ourselves.
Right.
And just stay away from everybody, because I don't want to inflict any damage on you. And if I'm by myself, I'm the only one I can hurt.
Yeah.
And so that's the mindset we take, and you reach out to the VA, and it's almost like going through, if you've ever been to a cattle auction, how they just run everybody through there, and that's what they do, and you don't feel like you're being listened to. And it's just, hey, here's this medication, and when that medication starts causing a side effect, then they give you a medication for that side effect, and then that one causes a side effect, and before you knew it, you're on 14 different medications.
Wow.
Excuse me.
No, it's fine. That's fine. So, Chris, what began your journey to wholeness? What happened to you that really got you to a place to where you could begin to see some way out of all this?
Well, we have to start at rock bottom. I was, taking 14 different medications a day throughout the day. Most of my day revolved around a clock that told me when to take the medication.
Mm-hmm.
And then at night, I always waited until my family went to bed, but at night I would pop open a bottle of Jack Daniels just so I could go to sleep and not have any type of nightmares. To me, I felt like it wasn't a peaceful sleep, but it was a sleep that I couldn't remember.
Okay.
And so I wanted that.
Because of nightmares?
Because of nightmares, and because of you do so much over there that you walk around every day with this sense of dread on you and this sense of shame. So to be able to deal with that, even when you're sleeping, I don't know how to explain it, but even when you're sleeping, you can feel that sense of shame. You can feel that doom. Something bad is going to happen, and I absolutely, and your mindset at that time is something bad is going to happen, and I absolutely deserve whatever it is.
Okay.
So in order to just put my mind at ease and put my body at ease for a minute, you've almost got to drink yourself into a coma every night. And, I grew up in an alcoholic family,
Mm-hmm.
and I never wanted my kids to see that. So, I would start at 2 o'clock in the morning, and, by the time they got up, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I'm staying away from them and not causing any damage to them.
Right.
So, but for my rock bottom, I was taking a deadly amount of Xanax that was given to me and mixing it with, a fifth of whiskey a night just to try to put myself out.
Yeah.
And I was almost disappointed when I woke up the next morning. Mm. It was like another day I have to face this, another day. And it had gotten to the point where, again, I could see the damage I'm causing the family. I know how my body feels, and it's just a mental anguish that is indescribable. So I had sat down and did the best I could in my irrational mind and thought of, okay, I'm going to take my own life. I'm done. I'm causing so much damage that you start to see down the road that without me, yes, it'll hurt when I do it. It'll hurt my family and everything, but life goes on. 2-3 years down the road, they'll have that happiness again. They'll be able to move on, and that's the way you're thinking. And the only thing changing out of the equation from what you're in now to there is you. So if I take myself out of that equation, my family doesn't have to suffer anymore.
Is this the thought pattern, Chris, of a lot of vets?
It is. It absolutely is. A lot of veterans see that, and you probably hear it in a lot of suicide notes and everything, that you'll be better off without me.
Okay.
And it's a belief that's almost in the core of your bones, that you truly believe that they will be better off without you, because you see the misery and the damage that you're causing, and these are to the people that you love the most.
Sure.
And you're unable to show that love. You're just showing hate and angry, and you're spewing out even over the littlest things. It could be you left a sink or a dish in the sink, and you just blow up over that, and everybody's like, whoa, and you see everybody in your family trying to walk on eggshells around you, and it just lowers everybody's quality of life.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I made the decision that, hey, it's going to be, they're going to be all right without me, and life will move on, and they will be able to, my wife will find somebody that'll be able to treat her right. My kids, hopefully they'll be a good dad to my kids. And maybe a few years down the road, when they think of me, it will only be the happy thoughts. It won't be the last year and a half, 2 years. So I had decided to just on a random day. And the weirdness of it was, once I decided to do that, to take my own life, I had such a sense of peace. And I think it was because in my irrational mind, I was like, it's over. I'm not causing any more damage. I don't have to deal with this mental anguish. It's a mental pain, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. All that will be gone. And so I sat down. It was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. I did drink a little bit. I get some of the liquid courage, as everybody says, and just kind of without thought, I put the gun in my mouth, started pulling the trigger, and for some reason, like I said, 2 o'clock in the morning, my wife never gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I heard her open the door and start to come out, and you know how when you catch a kid doing something they're not supposed to, they try to hide it. Well, that's what I did. And she just kind of looked at me for a second and looked at that, and it was just, she knew without knowing, and just kind of broke down. And she immediately took me back to took me up to Fort Sam Houston. And I was so out of my mind with all the pills and all that stuff that I'm legally taken from the VA.
Sure.
And I'm having what's called tremors from all the VAs, from all the pills from the VA. She took me up there, and the only thing I remember her saying, and I remember her raising her voice and saying, "You broke him, you need to fix him." And pills isn't the answer.
Yeah.
So I wound up staying at BAMC and at Fort Sam Houston for about a year to a year and a half, just solely working on me. And I know it sounds selfish, but at that point you have to be selfish. And you've got to work solely on you. And they've got some very good doctors up there that will actually sit and listen to you. And when you're saying, these pills are causing more damage, and I don't want these pills. You know, the VA, I actually overdosed twice off of the VA's medications.
Wow.
And, you know, you tell them, I'm to this day, I'm scared to take pills because of that. And, you know, the one thing that me and my wife talk about all the time is when she took me up there and I made the decision to get better, I had to put in all of 100% of the work to get myself better. And at that point in time, faith and religion and all that still was not in the picture.
Okay.
I was still angry, still very much angry at God, you know. So I felt that I had to work on getting my mind right first, to where I could at least have a rational thought before I could approach my anger with God. So after I got done with at Fort Sam Houston, I then went to a few other PTSD programs because I wanted to, not because anybody was forcing me at that point, but I wanted to. I wanted to get better. You know, there's no cure for PTSD.
Yeah.
But you can learn to live with it and have a happy life. And yes, you're going to have your down days, and you're going to have days where everything just crashes in on you, but you can have a happy life with it. So I started working to get myself better. And it wasn't until about a year after I got out of BAMC where I was feeling good again, feeling what most people call normal, but there's really no normal after that.
Right.
You know, it's just, I felt a better version of me.
Did you kind of wean yourself off of most of the medication the VA had you on at that time?
Well, yes, and I would definitely say to everybody who's watching this, go to a doctor to do that. I didn't, and I cold turkeyed it, and it almost killed me.
Wow.
It put me back in the hospital, and so definitely consult your physician before you do that, because some of those psychotropic drugs and everything that they have you on for your PTSD, traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that, you can't just stop cold turkey because it'll kill you.
Can be very dangerous.
It will.
So what happened, Chris, when you began to have some form of encounter with God that began to bring you to where you are today?
Well, it was, like I said, it's probably about a year after I got home, feeling like the best version of myself at that point, thinking clearly, and just started enjoying the time with my family. And during the whole process, the main national chapter of Hunters for Heroes, which is North American Hunters for Heroes, they always contacted me and said, hey, you should open up a chapter down there. Well, in the past, I had always said, hey, I'm in no shape to do anything myself. If I do this, I'm just going to lead these other veterans down a bad road, and we're all going to go down this bad road together, and I don't want to do that. And so I'd always put it off, but it was about a year. Got home and settled into the family, and everything seemed to be clicking real good. And it was just always on my mind. The question was always on my mind. Where were you at? And
Talking about God, asking
to God.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
Where were you when? How do you explain? Where were you when I needed you the most? You know, and at that point, I remember that was the only time I ever got really angry again.
Okay.
And you know, I would start remembering all the bad stuff, the damage I put my family through. Looking in the mirror, and all I seen was monster. That was the word that came to mind, was you're a monster. You know, and the shame that come with that.
And you've heard other vets say that as well.
I have. After talking with so many vets and starting to help veterans, a lot of us have that same exact. It was really strange to me that we all, you know, we'd never spoke before. And every one of us, when we was talking about it, when we'd look in the mirror, the only word that came to our mind was monster. You're a monster. So it's strange how our minds kind of focused in on that one word.
Yeah. So you're back home, and now you're beginning to really wrestle with God. Where were you, God? What happened?
Well, a whole series of events. The first things were me and the wife were sitting there, and she seen me thinking, and she's like, "I can smell the smoke. What are you thinking about?" And I'd ask her a simple question: well, how many veterans do you think in this area of West Texas are struggling the way I was? You know, and she said, and she looked at me, and the number devastated me. She said, probably thousands. And it just devastated me because it was so fresh to me still that I was like, that's unacceptable, you know, and I've got to do something about it, because during that whole time, I'm getting calls from, you know, friends in North Carolina, friends everywhere saying, hey, you know, one of your soldiers killed himself, you know, so all through this, you know, you're
And these are guys you led into duty.
Yes.
Okay.
And over the 20 years of the combat,
Sure.
that's the
Sure.
guys I'd led. And, you know, I'm getting these messages that, hey, they're taking their lives. And it just, and again, at that time, I felt I was still angry, but I seen God. Looking back, you can see God working, because I would have never opened up a nonprofit by myself. I just wouldn't have. But when she told me that number that she'd said, which is an arbitrary number, was so unacceptable to me that I was like, I have to do something. And my wife, being an old NCO in the military too, she said, well, you can complain about it or you can do something about it. Okay, well, let's do something about it. And she supported 100%. So we opened up, I called the national chapter and opened up my own chapter out in West Texas, which is a challenge all on its own.
Sure it is.
You know, West Texas is just different.
Yeah.
So we started out with nothing, absolutely nothing. And I remember at that point, I came to the conclusion, look, I've got to straighten this out with God first before I can do anything. So we need to go to the woodshed, whatever we need to do, we need to straighten this out. So, you know, that question always there. Where were you? Where were you during this time? So I actually started picking the Bible back up and started reading again. And like we said, I'm always drawn to John and Paul. And, you know, it just resonated within me that, you know, he was always there with us. I wasn't looking. And in the environment I was in, it's so hard to look for God when you have to be so cruel.
Yeah.
So he never turned his back on me. I turned my back on him. And so I just started studying his word and started praying again, like, all right. And I remember hitting my knees out in my backyard and said, okay, God, if this is really what you want me to do, then you take the wheel. You steer this nonprofit wherever you want it to go, and I'll do all the legwork. It was almost at that moment that it was weird that I saw him show up. I mean, it just, the nonprofit had, nobody knew us from Adam.
Yeah.
You know, we're nobody. And try to sell a nonprofit where you're saying, hey, I take veterans with PTSD and anger issues out hunting with guns. It doesn't sell.
Yeah.
You know, and so I went all around our town, Abilene, trying to get sponsors, and was turned down emphatically across the board. Like, no, y'all are crazy. We don't want anything to do with veterans of gun. Of course, I call it the Chris Kyle question.
Yeah.
You know, well, what happens?
Chris Kyle.
What happens when you get out there and that happens? Well, what people don't understand about PTSD is, first of all, the guy that killed Chris Kyle didn't have PTSD. He tried to use it as a defense.
Yeah.
The guys who truly suffer with PTSD, we don't want violence in our lives anymore. We enjoy shooting guns because it's a way to relax.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah.
And we're not looking for violence anymore. We're looking for peace. We're looking to have that camaraderie between other veterans, these other guys who's been on the same dirt we have and knows the same things, been through the same things. That's what we're looking for.
Sure.
And So I did. I was like, okay, my first big leap of faith. I was like, all right, God, it's yours. I'm just going to, wherever you send me, send me. And like I said, we were turned down by every gun store, everything, right off the bat. And we had a local pawn shop that had some faith in us and said, hey, here's you a couple guns, be safe.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah. So we had 2 guns and we had no land to hunt on. And so just out of the blue, somebody that I knew had talked to a landowner and it kind of mentioned what we were doing. So I got the call out of the blue from a guy I didn't know and said, hey, meet me at this address. I want to talk to you about your organization. So I did. And, he basically asked me, what's your business plan? And I was like, my business plan is to help veterans. Well, how are you going to do that? And, so we sat down and he actually helped me hammer out my mission statement, my mission plan. And he's like, all right, I've got 1,300 acres here or 1,100 acres, whatever it is. And let's do a hunt and see how it works. And of course, he watched us the first time and got to know us a little bit. And then afterwards, I remember him coming up to me and saying, you got a good thing here, keep going, and use the land all you want.
Sure.
So, that was our first blessing that I was just overwhelmed because these guys that owns all this land, they don't have to. The tax write-off they can get from me is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He's doing it because, at the time I felt just because he's a good person, but, I feel that God moved him to help us.
Sure.
So then after we had that, money's always an issue with the nonprofit.
Always. That's why they call it non-profit.
Yep. Absolutely. And so we now had land, we had guns, and we had no money.
So this actually started 5 years ago?
5 years ago.
And yes. How many veterans do you think you've been able to help on some level within that 5-year period?
Oh, I would probably say at least 1,000.
Wow, 1,000 vets. That's amazing. That's amazing. And just recently, this year, you decided to do more than just take vets out and hunt once a month. And basically, if I understand what you do is you let them hunt, you let them relax, then you put them around a campfire about midnight. And that's when they begin to talk.
It is.
Is that right?
It is. The campfire is like a moth to flame. You get them in front of there and, they'll sit in silence for a little bit and then somebody always breaks the silence and starts talking about past experiences. And then before you know it, the whole everybody around the campfire is getting their traumas off their chest and they're talking because they know it's a safe environment.
Sure.
Nobody's judging them. And we've all been there.
Sure,
So, you're not going to come off as crazy to me.
Right.
Because I'm crazy with you. So,
yeah.
We're there.
And so you've been doing that now for about 5 years, but this year you did something a little different. You added something to your program, your overall program, and that was a PTSD retreat.
We did.
And what the thing that you shared with me, that when it came to these guys coming home, struggling with having very difficult time adjusting to, like you said, being able to turn off that switch, and yet, as you shared with me in the past also, that dealing with the shame they deal with and the guilt and the condemnation of what they've done for their country, and then trying, like you did, to reconnect with God. What happened when you began to talk to some of these guys in your retreat? What did they say about their relationship to God and to their pastor in the church?
Like you said, we started doing PTSD meetings about 2 to 3 years ago. It got to the point where we were taking these guys hunting, letting them get it out around the campfire and sending them home on a high. And, God had put it on me. Every time I just felt, instead of feeling that overwhelming joy of, hey, I'm helping these guys and I'm sending them, they had a good weekend. It was just put on me that, there's no service after this. There's nothing to help these guys. They're going home on a high only to crash.
Yeah.
So I went through and did all the training to become a PTSD instructor, and we opened up our PTSD group meetings. And so those guys, everybody who comes through, they have the opportunity to come and meet up with us every week and just talk and just work through our issues. And so this year we added the retreat in, and the retreat was very rebuilding and very therapeutic for these guys. And what we've noticed over the last couple of years, especially with the veterans, is like I said, they're coming home and having the same struggles I did. Where were you during this? And they're going to their churches and they're talking with their pastors, and they're looking, they're hoping, they're grasping at anything, only to be told that some of the things they've done over there is unforgivable.
Wow.
And that, no matter which way you shake the stick at it, that, you've taken another life. You've done horrible things. You may even have taken an innocent life, even though it wasn't on purpose. That's war. There's casualties in war. And when you look and you're sitting across from this godly man who you're reaching out for, and he condemns you at that moment, you've lost everything. At that point, if you can't even be forgiven by God, then why am I still here? So it no longer becomes where were you at? It's like, okay, I understand why you wasn't here, because I'm unforgivable. I'm not worth your time. I'm not worth your effort and your energies. And it just sends you so much further down when these men of God condemn these veterans for that. And whether they come right out and say that, hey, you're condemned for this, and, hey, this is an unforgivable sin, taking another life, killing, murder, or they beat around the bush and, they take scripture out of context, and say, thou shalt not kill. No man shall lie in wait for another man. I mean, that's an ambush. That's the way we're going to see it as well.
Sure.
And it's hard enough to take somebody's life anyway, but then to come back here and you're searching for that forgiveness, that love, and searching for God, and then to be told, hey, this is basically why you haven't seen God, is because you're condemned over what you've done. There is no forgiveness for this.
Wow.
And it is, and I've seen it so many times with these veterans that come out on these hunts and come to the retreats with us, that they're in that spot where they've completely given up on the church. They've completely given up on, they've accepted their damnation almost. And, it's detrimental to them. It's one of those things that absolutely plays a factor into suicides.
Sure.
And
there's no hope.
Yeah.
Absolutely no hope.
And they're so clouded in the way we're thinking at the time, because we're in so much pain, is I'm a monster. And when you hear somebody confirm that you're a monster, well, it must be true.
Yeah.
And that's why God's not here for me.
So would you say that at least the pastors, the churches, the seminaries, the mentors, whoever it may be, not that we want to condemn them, judge them on any level, do you feel that some of the church, because of its theological construct, is obviously failing our vets today?
Absolutely. I do feel that. I feel that maybe we need to sit down and reevaluate this together and understand what the damage you're doing. And you're not just failing this veteran, but his family's also being failed.
Wow.
And the repercussions of that, it's, like I said, it took me a while to get to the conclusion that, God was there every step of the way with me. I'm the one who turned my back. He never turned his back.
Because you felt shame.
Because I felt shame.
And guilt.
Yes, and they have tents over there on every fob. That's a chaplain's tent. Mm-hmm. And at least the guys I was with, we felt so much shame that we couldn't walk into God's house. You come off of a mission having to do something violent, and then you got so much shame built up on you, you can't go into God's house. And
you're ashamed to face God.
You are, absolutely. And it's a shame to face Him. You're fearful. You're already condemning yourself. You don't want to walk into His house and hear somebody or have Him condemn you as well, because it's just the guilt and the shame and the trauma that it causes, because it's almost like that one special person you have in your life that's mentored you your whole life, and now you're so far away from him that you can't get any of that advice from him, you can't get any of that love from him, and so it turns into a really cold place.
Yeah.
So
where are you now, Chris? Do you feel that God loves you?
Oh, I know He does. I don't feel it. I know He does. I feel it. I experience it every day. I've seen Him move so much in my life that it amazes me on a daily basis that, He's got a lot more pressing things to do than deal with me, but He still takes the time and He deals with me. And as I've kept my word to Him, He's kept His. I'll do all the legwork, and He steers our organization wherever it goes. And we've had blessing after blessing after blessing. He keeps bringing me veterans to help. So we've incorporated over the last year or two, where every veteran comes out with us, you're getting a Bible.
Wow.
And I'm going to sit and talk with you. And I'm going to, and I've been called a bulldozer over this, but because I don't beat around the bush at all about it, because I would just come up and ask you, hey, what's your relationship with God? Do you know God?
Yeah.
So let's talk about it, And my advice to them, or pick up that Bible, start reading it, develop your relationship with God. That's your relationship, nobody else's.
Yeah.
Develop your faith in God and Jesus, and that's your faith. I can't give you my faith, but I can help you find it.
Yeah.
And I hope that my faith is strong enough to cover you while you're searching.
Awesome. That's beautiful. So you've discovered that God does forgive.
Absolutely.
And that God does not see you as a monster.
No, absolutely. I'm very special in His eyes, and I know that. And I've discovered that all the condemnation was coming from me.
Yeah.
I was condemning myself when God never once did.
Yeah.
And it was me that condemned myself. It was the world that condemned me, not God.
Yeah. Well, Chris, in that camera right there, there's a vet watching you. Just in about 2 to 3 minutes, what would you say to him, beyond everything that you've said, that would help that vet change his life? What would you say to him?
Well, first of all, know that there's veterans out here that love you. And even though we've never met, I love you. Second would be, again, pick up the Bible. Start to learn about the love and the compassion that God has for us. We're not condemned for anything. We're imperfect beings, and He knows that. Reach out to any of us. Any way you can, reach out to another veteran and get that help you need. And there is life with PTSD. You can have a good life. I love my life. And you can have because of PTSD and all the struggles I've went through, I feel my faith is even stronger now. And as I'm doing my studies, it's answering my questions like, where was God? How does he feel about what I did overseas? And there's a lot of scripture that helps you with that. I mean, start reading David. Start reading about David. David will, you can relate. If you're a veteran, you can definitely relate to David. And there's several others in the Bible. Nehemiah definitely can relate. Just reach out, get with somebody, find those positive people in your life. You're going to come across some of your best friends, some of your brothers in arms that are in such a negative place. It's going to drag you down, And first of all, you have to help yourself before you can help him. So get yourself straight. Develop that relationship with God. And understand that he's never once left you. That he's always here for you. There's times where we choose not to see him. And it's hard to live by God's word. It really is, because at that point, we're held accountable for what we do. And since we're held accountable, now we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And when you hold yourself to a higher standard, you can start to grow. And when you grow, you start to help other people along the way. And my advice is to take that first step. Just talk to God. You can talk to him like I'm talking to you right now. And just say whatever is on your heart. That's Debbie.
And Chris, if that veteran that's watching you, or multiple vets, or even individuals who've not been in the service, but their heart is breaking right now, and they're saying, I feel compassion, and I want to get involved in helping these vets, both men and women. How can they get a hold of you?
We have our Facebook page, Texas Hunters for Heroes, West Texas. And we also have a website. It's Texas Hunters for Heroes, WestTexas.org. And my phone numbers are all over them. And I do that on purpose. I'll answer the phone 24 hours a day if I need to help save a life, or to help a veteran or anybody that needs help. We have volunteers that come out and help, come out and sit with these guys in the deer stand, talk to them about your faith, talk to them about God, help them, excuse me. So many times we get, I don't know if it's scared or embarrassed, or what's he going to think about me if I bring God up, something like that. A lot of times that keeps us from asking the questions that we need to ask. And I feel it's my duty as a follower of Christ to bring him to everybody I meet. So, put that fear aside, because you're not going to be rejected the way you think. And even if you are, that's okay. We're doing what God wants us to do. And just, you can come out and sit and stand with them. You come out and help us serve the food to them and talk to them then. We do events all throughout the year. October, we did a 22K road march for veteran suicide awareness. Come out and support that. Walk with these veterans, talk with these guys. Any veterans in your family, just sit down and talk to them and listen to them. And, just most of these veterans just need to know somebody cares. So if you know a veteran, you don't have to thank us for our service, anything like that. Just listen to them and let them know that you're there for them and that you care.
Thank you, Chris. Vets, you may experience some horrendous things in life, but there is nothing God cannot forgive. God loves you. He's with you. He's for you. And he wants to pull you out of this state of internal hell. Somebody has asked the question, will I go to hell for what I've done? Well, you've been in hell. But know this, there is life, abundant life on the other side of where you are, just as Chris said. Chris is here for you. He's here to help you. He would serve you any hour of the day, also as he shared with us. And for those of you watching that may not be a vet, I want to encourage you to get involved with what Chris is doing. Support Texas Hunters for Heroes monthly. Give them something that will help them help these vets. These men and women have laid their lives down and sacrificed their lives for our country, and we are forever in their debt. They truly are heroes, and we should always honor them as great Americans. So if you would like to be a part of what Chris is doing, contact his website. Go to his Facebook page. Put down a little note in his contacts and say, hey, Chris, I want to be a part of this, and I want to help change the lives of veterans that have come home. He would greatly appreciate it. Heather, his lovely bride, who is always in the back scenes, always very quiet, but always a pillar in this organization that Chris and Heather run. They would so deeply appreciate it. I would deeply appreciate it. And I know the vets would be the most appreciative. So please do that. Go to the website. Chris, give us the website and Facebook page one more time.
Facebook is Texas Hunters for Heroes, West Texas. And the website is Texas Hunters for Heroes, westtexas.org.
Thank you, Chris. Listen, there's hope for you. There's help for you. Veteran, reach out and get the help you need. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of eStrategy. I'm Dr. Ray Vinson, my dear friend Chris English. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you giving us the privilege of coming into your home, your car, wherever you are, wherever you're watching or listening. And we always want you to remember you are unique, you're incredible, you're incomparable, and you will always, always be passionately, passionately loved. God bless. Hey, Merry Christmas.
So this is a shout out to my boy, Ward Ellis. It's his 1 year anniversary that he lost his battle with PTSD and committed suicide. This morning did a 22-mile road march in his honor, and I just wanted to put out there to you, Ward, man, I still love you and I miss you every day, brother. I wish you were here.